to A Drink and a Natter with me, Jacqui, your Juicy Chef. And I'm really, well, my guest today is special because he's different. And when you hear the subject matter, what we're going to speak about today, you'll know why. When one thinks of knife making, they think of Japan, Germany, Jamaica? Somebody in Jamaica makes knives. No, not cutlass or, whatever to chop the garden. No, like proper chef knives. Jabulani, welcome to Drinking a Natter.
What
Thanks
an
for
introduction.
joining.
Right? What an introduction. Thank you for having me.
No, well, the local chefs are in love with you. Mm-hmm. I mean, your knives, guys, just full disclosure. So right now, just before we started shooting, Jabulani's sister called. She's gone into labor. So of course, in the excitement of taking his sister to hospital, he forgot the knives. So that's why we don't physically have the knives. But throughout this episode, you will be seeing photos of his beautiful knives. So, but thank you for even coming despite, what was happening. So
you have to be here.
I know, Uncle to be, so you have to let us know if you have a niece or a nephew after this recording, right? So tell me, knife making, what was it that drew you to making knives and chef knives?
Well, I think it was back in 2016. I was searching for chef knives to buy. Mm-hmm. I know how the internet works. You search for something, then it pops up on your Facebook timeline, and that's exactly what happened. Okay. I was scrolling through Facebook one day, and I saw this video of a guy making a knife. Mm-hmm. Like making a chef knife, and he had a little bit of tools, very little experience. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I didn't know people actually made these things. Yeah. I thought you walk into a store and, they make them somewhere in the back,
right, like some
store.
Kind of factory.
Yeah, So I didn't know handmade knives were a thing. Mm-hmm. And I was really intrigued, so I then started to find out more, like, what else is there, like watching YouTube videos. I did a lot of reading. Okay. Yeah, did a lot of reading as to how to make knives and the different techniques and the different cultures that make knives, and the one that stood out most was Japanese knives.
I think this season 2, Japan is presented itself very strongly because in 2 other episodes, Japan has come up for this season. Oh, yeah? And it was one of my other guests a while ago. Both of us were supposed to go last year for the Olympics. I was going to go with my auntie. Yeah. She was going to go with her family. Our other guests, they lived in Japan. And now you're speaking about how Japan also was an inspiration for you with these knives.
It's definitely been a huge influence in throughout the knife making process for me. And what really drew me to Japanese knives was the history behind it. And it goes back in the samurai days when they abolished samurai, when the whole practice of samurai was abolished. Knife makers, samurai sword makers went out of business. Okay. So what they did was they took the samurai swords and they made them shorter. Yeah, and that's why Japanese swords look like small. Japanese knives look like small swords. So that's the history behind that.
I never made that correlation, that connection before. I always love learning new things.
Nice.
Thank you. Yes.
And then the whole simplicity of how the Japanese do things. It's a very straightforward, honest, simple process, right? It's just beautiful, and it's said that the true beauty of a Japanese knife is in its sharpness. Aesthetics and all those things do matter, but they don't matter as much as the functionality of the blade.
Definitely.
Yeah, and that is something that I really put a lot of emphasis on, functionality before pretty looks are aesthetics.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
No, and we're going back to the basics now. I think this pandemic has shown us that a lot of what glitters is not gold.
True.
And we need things that are practical. We need things that will last a long time. Yes. So when we buy things now, especially for us who are chefs, it's an investment. It's our tools.
Fully agree.
And I think with this fast food society, when I talk about fast food, not necessarily food itself, where but how things now are just always being made. But the quality has decreased. True. It may look pretty or beautiful, but otherwise it's totally useless.
And that is something that I try to avoid, because people like things that are aesthetically appealing, but at the same time I personally don't believe I should sacrifice pretty looks for something that functions below par, right? So when I'm throughout the knife making process, like, functionality is forever in the forefront of my mind. Like, how can I make this knife more functional how can I make it, better for most users, because not everybody is familiar with Japanese style knives. So I try to incorporate different designs to make it more ergonomic, so somebody with small hands, Japanese knife, so like you with small hands, the fit is better, the feel is better, and the balance is right, straight throughout. Right, because you have a lot of knives that, they look good, they function well, but they're just heavy.
Yes.
Right.
So that's been a big problem for me throughout, the knives, and I'm like, oh my god, I just feel so clumsy. But I like a good. That's why I do have a bias towards Japanese knives. And obviously I bought my knives before I met you. But now that I know that you're here present on the island, I don't need to buy knives overseas again, because I follow you on Instagram. I love how you take us through the process on your stories and your pictures. And I'm like, well, my next set of knives, I just gonna call Jabulani and order.
Local.
Buy local. And we Nyamantrod is about presenting Caribbean talents, and showing the world, because there's so many stereotypes about, Caribbean people. People don't realize how dynamic and eclectic that we are. Hodgepodge people, from race to religion to skill sets. It's not this, oh, we're on the island chilling, eating watermelon fried chicken type
everything
of vibe.
All right, everything Irie, man.
I mean, sometimes things are Irie and sweet and no problem, but the reality is there's a multitude of talents, throughout the islands and stuff. And I wanted to ask you as well. I know you were self-taught initially, but since that time, have you been abroad to kind of, hone your skills a bit more? That you've been to any factories overseas or anything?
Well, I haven't been to any factories, but I've been to other knife makers. I visited other knife making shops overseas. I was living in Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, I was
New
living
England.
in Cape Cod once, and I visited there I think 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I visited a local knife maker, Cape Cod Cutlery. Really, really, they make really, like rustic looking, simple knives, chef knives, hunting, all sorts of different knives. And I was really fascinated as to how they did it, because their process was different from mine, and their style is different from mine. So that's really how you get to, expand your vocabulary in our way, by seeing how different people do things and try to incorporate them into your work. You're not copying it, but you're getting inspiration.
Yeah, no, definitely. We're all inspired by something. They said there's nothing original left really under the sun, but it's that you put your little touch into it. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's like with a lot of my knives, I have a rustic style, right? Some of them would have a satin finish, but I love the rustic look. It just feels more authentic, and you feel more connected to the process. Right, when you can look at your knife and you see forge marks left behind from a hammer, it really gets you connected to the process and the builder. You feel connected in the end, right? So that is why I think a lot of people love my knives so much, because it's the connection. Right? It's definitely the connection.
No, because I've seen a lot of my friends, colleagues in food and even non-food people buy your knives, and I love that you appeal to both the regular housewife and the professional chef, and that's how it should be. When you make a product that has that mass appeal to everybody, they don't feel intimidated to buy a knife from you. And I also love that you have knife sharpening services too, because that's another thing. A dull knife is never pleasant in a kitchen. It's the worst thing. And which reminds me, by the way, I haven't been doing much cooking, so I'm sending my knives to you. I love that people, in terms of maintenance, it's not just buying a knife from you, but we could always come back to you for the maintenance of this product.
And that's one thing that I try to emphasize, the care of your knife, because a lot of people buy these knives because it's a hype. Like, quite frankly, a lot of people will buy the knives because it's a hype, and they tend to neglect the knife, and that really hurts me. Because when you get the connection that you have between the process, you put your heart and your soul into it, you're gonna feel so away if somebody neglect your knife, right? But so I really emphasize keeping and caring it, how to properly sharpen it. And in the near future actually, I'm planning on having seminars or
Excellent.
workshops as to
Excellent.
how to sharpen your knife, how to
Mhm.
really keep it looking like it just came from my shop.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, hopefully Nav and Trod can cover one of your workshops and
Hopefully,
everything,
hopefully.
because we have so many people who have been saying to us, Jacqui, some of these people, and I would like to learn this or that. And so I think we're definitely going to bring you back to do, a
Yes.
knife workshop with
Yeah, I'm
us for our
definitely
Nyam and
looking
Trod
forward
readers,
to it.
because we have Nyam and Trod readers around the globe.
Mhm.
So far, our stats are telling us actually 70% of our audience are from overseas,
Oh yeah.
with who have an interest in the Caribbean and have been happy to watch this show and the other content to say, wow, we didn't know that was going on, because some of them have admitted, oh, we
Yes.
did have a kind of one-dimensional view, and see, here you are, a Jamaican
Yes.
knife maker, and I think it's wonderful.
And this is when you mentioned to me a few months ago that you're gonna start the whole Nyaman Trad magazine. I
Yeah.
thought it was such a good idea, because things like this is what makes the world a smaller place.
Definitely.
Like when you can go on Facebook or go on YouTube and click on your video and realize, oh hell, there's a guy in Jamaica making knives.
Yes,
It
exactly.
really makes you second guess. It really makes you question a lot of things, right? Like what else is in store? Like what else is there?
What the possibilities are endless,
True,
and that's why I
true.
love young people like yourself coming up. This island is teeming, not just the island, the region is
Yes.
teeming with talent, but a lot of times exposure,
Mhm.
opportunity as
True.
well. And I hope that this platform, as small as it is, will be an impactful platform. Because what I tell a lot of people, the people who follow my accounts, for example, they may are I don't know how to say this. I have a quality of follower.
Yeah.
I have a quality of demographic. For me, it's not about massive numbers.
No.
It's a niche brand, and the type of people that follow me are the type of people that will support you.
True.
And I think so. Anybody out there who needs a new knife, do you send your knives overseas? Do you have a website people could order online and send overseas? I know things are a bit complicated at this particular time period.
Well, I recently launched my website back in December, but the thing is, the whole logistics of the situation, getting knives overseas, actually it's prohibited.
Oh yes,
So
it's considered might be a weapon.
Yes.
Okay.
So they're like anything that could be a potential weapon, it's a no. So I find ways to work around those restrictions, and to in order to get knives overseas,
Right.
because that's how you grow.
Yeah.
That's how you share the love. Because if people locally love your knife, there's a possibility that people overseas will love
Right,
it.
exactly, because the Jamaicans living or the diaspora living overseas, and then their friends who are non-Jamaicans, they come to visit the island.
Yes.
So instead of like the typical souvenirs, like a bag of coffee and a bottle of
Bottle of
rum,
rum.
they could be taking a knife home with them
Exactly.
as a memento. And I would love to see you open a storefront one day. When things return to normalcy, and it's affordable for you to make sense for you to have, like you come to
storefront.
Jamaica to go to Karma Knives.
Yes.
How cool would that be?
It sounds
It's
really
like a
good.
stop. Yeah. So we're going to speak that into
being.
being.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Is there anything else you would like to tell us about your product before we wrap up today?
Well, as I said earlier, like in the future, I'm really looking to expand. Like start teaching how to make knives. Having classes, really getting the product out there. Because I'm really an advocate. I really believe in sharing knowledge.
Definitely.
What's the point in having it if you're gonna keep it to yourself?
Exactly.
So how can I spread this amongst the people? How can I
So
get
any
more people
investors
involved?
out there, potential investors, who recognize Jabulani's talent and would like to support him to make his dream a reality, especially on the islands. We have a lot of youth in the inner cities, for example, who need to learn a new skill set. If this is something that will take them off the streets, this is something, again, to put that energy into making these beautiful knives. They could gift their mothers and their grandmothers when they make the lovely food for them. And then also make a living for themselves, So any investors out there, locally or abroad, his details will be in the caption and of course on the screen, and follow him, support him, send him a DM, and I would love to see that happening for you. So you tell me if anybody's called you to support you, because I think it's an amazing thing. And local chefs, keep on supporting them. Thank you. It's actually local chefs who told me about you through word of mouth, which I think is the best
It is.
advertising.
It is.
I've
It
seen your
is.
knives with them. They've shown me I've felt them, guys. They are world class. I can tell you, I'm a knife snob. I have my my Japanese knives, and his is up there
Wow.
with the knives and stuff
Wow.
like that. So can you imagine as time goes,
True.
and you have the material, the access to the material that you need. Is that another
Well,
challenge sometimes?
I most of my the steel comes from overseas
Yeah, because
because
we
it
have to import some
yes
things.
yes
That's
so the
okay.
steel comes from overseas. I have really good relationships with my suppliers, with my
Mhm.
overseas suppliers, so I get things on time. I get it fast. I get like the best quality steel out there.
Mhm.
The steel that I use is high carbon steel, which
It's best.
it differs from stainless steel, with the metallurgic characters, the metal, characteristics of it. But when it comes to edge retention, performance, and overall beauty, I think it stands out
Definitely.
over a stainless steel.
Yeah.
Because I like, as I had said earlier, I like the rustic look and I like things that age. And I believe that using stainless steel to make knives, it allows the knife to age over time, as opposed to you buying a knife now and 20 years later it looks like you bought it yesterday. It doesn't
Yeah.
really tell a
So
story,
yes.
right? So stainless steel enables the user to tell a story. It really tells you what the user cooks. It tells you how you treated your knife, and I think that's the real beauty of it. In the end, it's kind of my definition of living forever. Being immortal.
It's legacy. It's a
It's
legacy.
it's a
It's like
legacy.
it could be a family heirloom. You pass it
Exactly.
on to the other generation. Because I have
Exactly.
stuff from my grandmother and great grandmother, which
Yes.
I cherish, which I would like to pass on to my niece
True.
one day. You know what I
And
mean?
that's the beauty behind it. It lives forever, and long after you're gone, it will still be around. Still
It's that
functional.
connection.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's the real beauty. In the end, I think the real passion or the real reward from making knives is the response that I get, from the, in the, like when you drop off a knife to somebody and they look at it and it's like they're lost.
Yeah.
It's like they're lost,
Yeah.
in the knife, and that's the real. That's the real
Yeah.
money for me.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
of
that's the
course.
real money for me.
So there's a common theme amongst my friends. It's more about the feeling than the money.
Yes,
It's like
yes.
me. I take jobs on with my spirit text, as
Me,
Jamaicans
same.
say. Yeah, it's not
Spirit.
about the money for me. Sometimes things just matter more. And I think in this time that we're living in too, a lot of things that don't matter, we're stepping away
True.
from those things, and it's more about things that touch your soul
Yes,
and your
yes.
spirit, and it's about the ethics of things
Yeah.
too. You go to sleep at night and you feel good about what you did. That's priceless.
It is. It is. And to add to that, I it sometimes I have a connection with my clients, right? And it really puts me in a spot or in a zone where I put a different level of emphasis into the work based on the connection that I have with a customer. You have the good ones.
Yeah,
and,
no,
you have
you're gonna have some characters
a
out
variety.
there. Yeah,
Right, but it really transcends into the work. Right, every knife is made, special, and every knife gets the same level of attention. But you have those that are
Right.
just special. That it's
Yeah.
really the heart to heart connection.
I'm sure there have been some knives that you've made that you haven't wanted to part with.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, an artist,
Yes.
sometimes they create something and you've put your heart and soul into it. So it's almost like, a part of, like you're giving
Yes.
a piece of you away.
And oftentimes I have to talk myself into learning to develop that grit to not get too attached to the
Yes,
knives,
yes.
but it's so hard, like as you
Yeah.
said, you put your heart and soul into it, so it's hard to
But at
to
least you
part
maintain a
ways.
relationship through the servicing and
Yes,
everything. So
yes.
that's the beauty, of course, except for those that go abroad, but the ones that remain locally.
And the good thing is that if you purchase a knife from me, you get lifetime servicing. I sharpen it for free.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, if you purchase it, I
Wow.
sharpen it for free. If
Okay.
there's anything, if there's anything mechanically wrong with the knife, I repair it for free.
That's great.
Right, so it's buy local,
So yeah, definitely. We have to support local
Yeah,
artisans.
yes.
So, Jabulani, on that note, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This has been so special to me, this episode. I mean, I love to see what young people are doing on the
Yes.
island, especially, unique things. And, for our Nyam and Trod viewers and listeners out there, please support him. Please follow him. Please encourage him. If you know
Yes.
anybody who wants to develop this skill set, send them to Jabulani as well. So that we all need each other and connect
True.
each other, right?
Especially in this time.
So we have to one last cheers before we go. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you for
joining
having
me
me.
today. And I'll see you next time with a close friend from my friend circle on the next episode of A Drink and a Natter with me, your Juicy Chef. Love and blessings, and see you soon. Bye. So you know when my mates come over, I have to fix them a drink.